Hey everybody, it's Becky with New Hampshire Audubon. It's a beautiful day out and I think I got my technology solved. So here we go. Oh yes. All right. Hi Susan. Hey, I can see the comments. I've got it on my phone. Everything's working. Hooray, isn't that great? Oh, and on top of that, I can see it on my computer too. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Happy to answer any questions or hear any observations that you might have, any comments. Again, it's Becky with New Hampshire Audubon, and I'm going to start out by saying hi to Cynthia in Hudson and Susan in Panica. Great, thanks for joining me. I want to give a little quick migration update because there are a couple things for people to be watching for. We've been talking about red-breasted nuthatches, which are here in big numbers, probably feeding on our pine cone crop. We've got lots of pine cones out there, and purple finches are being uh, commented on there. They're flying around. They again nest farther north, just like our red-breasted nuthatches, many of them, and then they can come south in some years. And this is a good year for purple finch. But pine siskins are starting to show up. And pine siskins are small birds. They look a lot like goldfinch in shape, but they're all streaky on the breast. They have a thin, pointy bill, and you might see a little bit of yellow on their wing, but mostly you just see brownish on the back. And people are starting to talk about a big movement of pine siskins from north. So we may see them in the fall, or hopefully they'll come through and stay for the winter. But that's another thing to look for. And there are reports from Canada that a chickadee migration is going on as well. And we think of chickadees as year round here, but there are some that migrate from farther north. So the ones that you see around in the wintertime, it may not be just your local birds. In fact, your local birds may have moved around a bit as well. But they may come from farther north and you'll have more chickadees around. So be watching for that. Pine siskins like thistle seed or Niger seed, but they may be with flocks of goldfinch right now. If there are only a few coming in, they may be hanging out with the flocks of goldfinch. And around here, the goldfinches are going to the community gardens in Concord where there's lots of sunflower seed. And I see them all the time. They like little weed seeds as well. So I was out birding there this morning. I probably had at least 50 or 60 goldfinch there. Hi, Becky. Thanks for letting me know that you can see and hear me. I really appreciate that. And thanks for joining. Again, if you have any questions, send them along. Um, we've got for migration, the sparrows are starting to come in. We still don't have huge numbers of them here in the Concord area, but we're starting to see our first dark-eyed juncos coming in. And numbers of white-throated sparrows are building up as well. Savannah sparrows are coming, and the first white-crowned sparrows are coming. Now, white-crowned sparrows are really hard to tell from white-throated sparrows, but they have they're a little bigger. They have a clear sort of grayish breast, brown on the back. The adults have real black and white stripes on their head, but so do white-throated sparrows. So that can be a little hard to tell. But the immature white-crowned sparrows have brown and tan stripes on their head. Of course, there are white-throated sparrows that are brown and tan striped as well. In fact, white-throated sparrows are really interesting because they have two different color variations for their head stripes. One is really black and white, the other is tan and brown. And the black and whites are more aggressive than the tan and browns, but the black and white mates with the tan and the brown rather than with another black and white form. So it's really pretty interesting. Hi, Joe. Thanks for joining. All right, back to migration. We got a little sidetracked on the white-throated sparrows, but sparrows are starting to build up. warblers are tapering off, but there are still lots of yellow-rumped warblers around. And there are palm warblers coming through. I had both of those this morning when I was out birding. And then I had a couple of late Wilson's warblers. Wilson's warblers are really pretty little warblers. They're one of our smaller warblers. They're yellow on the breast, greenish on the back. They have a little black cap. And in the fall, sometimes they don't have that black cap. That's part of that confusing fall warbler thing. But they were fun to see. That's late. They're for Wilson's warblers, they should be through by now. So it was a treat to see a couple of them hanging in a little bit later. The other thing that I saw this morning were a couple of merlins, and it was really interesting because the merlin came along the garden, scattered all the birds, and then the birds kind of ducked in and went quiet, and the merlin went up to the top of a pine tree, and it really wanted to sit on the top of that pine tree. But the blue jays were calling away and dive bombing it. And so it left its perch and went to the top of another pine tree, and the blue jays followed it. And there were about 3 blue jays, and then the merlin turned the tables and started chasing the blue jays. And so for a little while, the merlin would try to perch up, the blue jays would chase it, then the merlin would chase the blue jays, went back and forth. Eventually, there were 2 merlins around. I don't think they caught a blue jay because they kept flying around and hunting. And at one point, one of the merlins chased the other merlin, and eventually they both left the garden area. That was really a treat to see. Hi, Susan, and hi, Mary. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the comments. And as I always mention, if you are watching this later and would like to send us an email question, send it to birds, BIRDSETC at NHAudubon.org. Or you can always send a Facebook message. So this is a great time of year with fall migration and lots happening. So it's fun to get out and see what you can spot. It can also be a tough time for identifying birds because we have the confusing fall warblers and that are in much duller plumage than they would be in the springtime. And then you've got sparrows, which are all little brown jobs and hard to identify. So another thing, I wanted to get back to a couple of questions that came up in earlier Facebook Lives. One was about the screech owl that we have at New Hampshire Audubon. New Hampshire Audubon's McLane Center has a number of captive raptors that can't be released. One is a bald eagle, we have red-tailed hawk, we have barred owls, and we've had an Eastern Screech Owl. And somebody mentioned that they hadn't seen it recently, and that's because unfortunately the screech owl died. We'd had it for 9 years, which is a long time for a screech owl to live. That's old for a screech owl, and we don't know how old it was when we first got it. So it appeared to have just died of old age. I'm sorry to report. And then the other thing that I said I would look up was a list of shrubs and trees with fruit on them. And I found an excellent one at the UNH Cooperative Extension website. And it had a listing of all different kinds of trees and shrubs with fruit. And we will be compiling all that information in our new State of the Birds publication. It's in its final draft. It'll be out soon. We'll have it on the website, and we'll have some of the resources on the website that we mentioned in the State of the Birds. And there'll be a whole what you can do section, and it includes links to things like this list of trees and shrubs with fruit. So watch for that to come out, and it'll be a resource where you can find that information. Susan, thank you for responding. I think you were the one that asked about the screech owl, and yes, we were very sad when it died. And hi, Mary. Hi, Linda. Thanks for watching. So back to the list of shrubs and trees. That brought me to when I was looking for the list that I thought I remembered seeing. I found the one on the UNH Cooperative Extension, but I also found a terrific video by Doug Tallamy. It was a presentation that he did for a group, and they've got it up on the website. And he was talking about the importance of native plants for caterpillars to feed birds. And it really was fascinating, and it's made me want to investigate that a little bit more for my own yard and what trees and shrubs I could put in that would be native, that would produce caterpillars to feed things like chickadees or warblers in spring migration or fall migration. They're terrific information that Doug Tallamy has gathered about the native plants that produce the most caterpillars. And I'll spell his last name. It's Tallamy. It's Doug Tallamy. He's a professor and he's written several books. I've used one as a reference, but I'd encourage you, if you're interested in um, incorporating shrubs and trees in your yard, that and even other plants. It doesn't have to be just shrubs and trees, obviously. It can be perennials that come up that feed caterpillars that will then feed your birds. It's a great resource. And I hope to be presenting a little bit more about that at another time. So Cynthia, hello from Hudson. And any questions? I'm just checking my phone where I can see all the comments. Hi, Christina. Hi, Allie. Hi, Lauren. If you've got any questions or any observations, go ahead and post a comment on Facebook. I'm so excited that I can actually see them. All right, so hopefully stay tuned more for a little bit, some kind of information about good trees and shrubs for caterpillars. I may try and show you some of the things I'm trying to do in my yard. So we'll let you know if that happens. We've gotten several photographs recently of people wanting to get a bird identified that they'd seen coming to their bird bath. And they've been warblers. And it's really interesting. With warbler migration going on, I don't often see them coming to bird baths, but we've been in such a drought that the bird baths in people's yards are providing valuable water for not only our local birds, but also migrants coming through. And the bird baths that they seem to be going to are on the ground. So this is something I've now got this bee in my bonnet where I want to get a bird bath on the ground. I've got one on a post that I can plug in and that will be unheated that will be heated during the winter time. So it's unfrozen. So birds need water in the winter, and in the winter it's frozen. In the summertime they need water, but it can be dry, and the local sources, especially if we don't get any rain, they dry up. So putting a bird bath out on the ground when it's not snowy and cold may really attract some birds. So I'm going to give that a try. They tend to like shallow water. So it's actually ideal if you can find something that angles down, that's shallow at one end and deeper at another. And I'm going to be doing a little bit of looking for something like that that I can put out. And if I find anything great, I will let you know. The one that I saw recently was actually a big stone one that had been carved out by somebody. And it was kind of triangular in shape and pretty good sized. But the person who had it said that the birds would come a lot to when it was very shallow. So a little bird like a warbler doesn't need all that much depth. And if it's too deep, they can't sit in it or take a bath in it. So putting out water is a great idea. Let's see. Hi, and just checking comments on my phone. Susan's talking about checking the Concord, New Hampshire community gardens. The fall is a great time at community gardens, not just the one in Concord, but any community garden that hasn't been cleaned up yet. So there's weeds, we don't want weeds in our garden, but when they go to seed, they're great food for birds. So community gardens, especially messy ones, can be a magnet for birds in the fall because there's lots of seed for food. And that's why there's lots of sparrows that like to go there because they have the larger, more conical bill that can crack seeds open. So they tend to go to community gardens, but you can also get little warblers there, your late warblers like yellow-rumped and palm warblers. Also like to feed maybe in goldenrod. They'll come into the goldenrod and look for little insects that are there. I had, let's see, I had 5 palm warblers in a patch of goldenrod at the community gardens this morning. So if you got community gardens in your area, go ahead, check them out, see what you can find. They can be great for birding right now. And if you're part of a community garden and can encourage the managers to allow you to leave your weeds up until November or so, so have a late cleanup, that can be really helpful for birds. Let's see. Hi, Liz. Okay, I'm going to check what some of our questions are. Hi, Blaine. A clean paint roller tray for a bird bath. Really interesting. If it's metal, it would be rusty, but if it's not metal, it could really be a good idea. That would be worth trying. Good thought. This is for a bird bath on the ground. You could just put that roller tray's already angled. It's got a deeper end, more shallow. Be worth trying. Checking out to see. Good idea. Hi, Lisa, Lori, Cynthia. Cynthia's mentioning releasing a monarch. I hope the birds leave her alone. Long journey to Mexico. Yes. So the monarchs that we see now are headed to Mexico, and we've still got some warm days where they can do their migrating, and hopefully that orange and black color on their wings will serve as a warning that the monarch does not taste good. And it doesn't taste good because the caterpillars eat milkweed, and milkweed has the alkaloid chemical in its leaves and stalk that doesn't taste good. So the caterpillars are yellow and black. That's a warning that they don't taste good. And the butterflies are orange and black as a warning that they don't taste good. So that's great. Great to have that going along. So bird baths, we mentioned that. There was another thing that I wanted to talk about, which is yard cleanup. And I just started mentioning with garden cleanup, if you can delay it until November or so, when most of our seed eating birds that are going south have moved south. That would be great if you can delay it even longer and leave those weeds up over the winter time. Birds like goldfinch and siskins will come to those weeds. Common redpolls will come to weedy seeds if they come south this this winter. They're another species like pine siskins, breed farther north, but in some winters they come down into our area. So the longer you can leave up weedy plants with their seeds, the more attractive that will be to birds. You'll be providing some bird food there. And that's also true in your yard. If you can kind of leave your yard a little messy, doesn't have to be immaculate. In fact, it's better if it isn't. If you can leave leaves under shrubs, it not only provides um, uh, mulch for the shrub and helps keep moisture in, but it also provides nutrients for the shrub itself. And then it can provide little worms and invertebrates that are in those leaves and in the damp ground for things like robins and thrushes. A great food source for them. It's also a place where you can have wintering caterpillars or the eggs of caterpillars. They can be on dead leaves, and there are even some adult butterflies and moths that overwinter as an adult, and they like things like wood piles or brush piles. In fact, birds like brush piles as well. as places to winter and have some protection. Our woolly bear caterpillars like to be in either leaves or matted grasses or a weedy area that doesn't get cut. That can be really helpful little spot where caterpillars, other insects can winter over and provide food for our birds. So it's a good excuse to leave a messy yard. It's okay to do that. Encourage you to do that. Even little twigs that are left over, they can be for bird nests in the springtime after the snow melts. So maybe having a place, again, a brush pile is a spot where you can have things like that that just stay over the winter time. So keep your yard messy. Again, it's Becky with New Hampshire Audubon. If you have a comment or question, don't hesitate to post it to Facebook. Or you can send us a message, or you can send an email to birds, etc., BIRDS, ETC, @NHAudubon.org. Thanks everybody for joining me and for all your comments, letting me know you're watching and letting me know that I'm coming through okay. So I also want to give you a sneak preview of our bald eagle breeding season summary. Chris Martin, our raptor biologist at New Hampshire Audubon, has just finished up on this summary. And we'll be putting out more word about it, but I thought I'd give you some of the highlight numbers because we had yet another record year for the number of pairs in New Hampshire. Last year was a record. This is a record 75 pairs of bald eagles in New Hampshire. That is terrific. I started at New Hampshire Audubon about 30 years ago, just when the first eagle pair returned to the state to nest. That was up at Lake Bagog in Errol, and it was very, very exciting. That pair returned to nest in the same tree where the last bald eagle pair had nested. Just amazing. It was a huge white pine tree on a little grassy island at the north end of Lake Bagog. And that's a whole story in and of itself. But that first pair back, bald eagles were decimated by DDT, which caused eggshell thinning. DDT is a pesticide that was commonly used, and it caused eggshell thinning, particularly in raptors, because it was a toxin that bioaccumulated. So it might be a low level in some creatures, but as those things like small rodents were then eaten by larger ones and then eaten by larger ones, then the toxin accumulated. So when something like a bald eagle ate it, it got a lot of toxin that caused eggshell thinning. Their numbers declined. They disappeared from the state as a breeding bird. But then after 40 years, they returned. This was back, I think it was 1988 or 89. I started at New Hampshire Audubon in February of 1988. And I can't remember if it was the first or the second summer when I was at Audubon when we had a pair return to breed again after 40 years. And to think that they went to exactly the same tree where the last pair had been was just amazing. And then we did some management. New Hampshire Audubon, in partnership with New Hampshire Fish and Game, managed the bald eagles and the monitoring of bald eagles, put predator guards around trees where the nests were. These are big pieces of sheet metal, usually a couple of them, to keep raccoons from climbing up in the trees. We did the same thing for osprey as well, and it helped with successful nesting tremendously. Was a big benefit for that. But to have 75 pairs now, 30 years later, is just terrific. And there were 63 pair that incubated successfully, no, that incubated rather, and 50 that successfully fledged young one. All three of those are a record. There were 75 young that were produced this year in the state, and that's the second most ever. The record was in 2019, last year, with 21 young. So our bald eagle population is truly doing well, and it has been removed from the threatened and endangered species list, both federally and at the state level, because of that tremendous growth in the population. So it's very exciting, and you have a good chance of seeing a bald eagle in the state just about anywhere now. They have repopulated most of the state. The most common along our major riverways and major lakes, and in the Great Bay coastal area. But you can see them just about anywhere. And when the young ones fledge for those sort of next 4 years, they move around all over the place. They don't have the white head and the white tail. It takes them 4 years to get that, and sometimes 5 to get a clean white head and tail. So you can see the youngsters, they move just about anywhere in those 4 to 5 years. And eventually they'll look for and find a new nesting territory. So very exciting to have that number of bald eagle pair in the state. And Susan mentions having seen bald eagles at Sewell's Falls. Sewell's Falls is along the Merrimack River in Concord, so great place to see them. Bald eagles do go after fish quite a lot, and sometimes falls is a great area for them to catch fish. They will also, they're well known for chasing after osprey that have successfully caught a fish and forcing the osprey to drop the fish, and then they go and grab it. And I have seen, and just this past summer, I watched a bald eagle do that twice to the same osprey, but both times the osprey dropped the fish disappeared, and neither one of them got it. But the bald eagles are successful at stealing osprey fish on a pretty regular basis. The ospreys are migratory, and they have pretty much, well, they haven't totally left the state, but they're leaving the state now. This is their migration time, and they'll head farther south, Caribbean, South America, and go way south. The bald eagles, particularly the adults, will stay around and be on territory in their nesting area, oftentimes throughout the entire winter. As I mentioned, the young ones move all over the place. So we do see bald eagles in migration at the Hawkwatch sites. And the Hawkwatch site at Pac Monadnock is still going. It will be going through this month. Again, that's at Miller State Park, and you do need to make reservations to go there. So be sure to go to the website for Miller State Park and make reservations if you want to go up to the Hawkwatch site there. Let's see. Cynthia, whitehead and whitetail flying down Route 3 in Merrimack. Quite a sight. Yes, adult bald eagles are quite a sight. Really is a treat. Uh, so enjoy seeing them out there. Their recovery is the result of a lot of hard work, the banning of DDT, putting predator guards around, um, monitoring for wintering roost sites, and ensuring that no disturbance happened at those roost sites. It's been a long, long effort that has allowed these birds to recover. Let's see, any other questions that we've got out there? I think I have, let's see, I followed up on our questions from last time. You've got your migration update, things to watch for, got your bald eagle sneak preview. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to send a message to us on Facebook or to send us an email at birdsetcetera@nhaudubon.org. A reminder that New Hampshire Audubon's sanctuaries, the trails on the sanctuaries are open. Our centers in Concord and Manchester are still closed, but you can come, you can walk the trails, you can see the birds that we have at the McLane Center in their outdoor mews, in their outdoor cages there that are called mews. So please come take a visit. It's a great time to be outside and watching for migrating birds and other really interesting happenings of the fall. We really do appreciate your support. New Hampshire Audubon is an independent nonprofit organization. We're funded by donors like you and grants from organizations to nonprofits for our projects. So if you can make a donation on our website, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Again, if you have any questions, send them along. We'll answer them, and we'll look forward to our next time when I'll let you know what's happening out there and answer any other questions that you've got. Oh, I just forgot. I also wanted to mention that if you want to buy bird-friendly coffee, you can call Craig at our McLane Center at 603-224-9909, and he can arrange for that purpose. I'll talk more about bird-friendly coffee next week, but some folks have been asking about it because we carry it in our nature store. With the building not open, people haven't been able to get it, but you can call Craig and he'll arrange with you for a purchase. So that's Craig at New Hampshire Audubon, 603-224-9909. Craig is there part-time. He's usually there 4 days of the week. So please leave a message if you don't reach him right away. Thanks very much. Enjoy your fall birding. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you again.